This is the Louie T Network.
In the lab room.
Welcome, you are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me here to break down the Jacksonville Jaguars traveling out to the 12th man to CenturyLink Field to take on the Seattle Seahawks. Look, there was no way the Jacksonville Jaguars were going into the Hawks' nest and coming out with a victory. This was my sole survivor pick of the week. So I knew this one was a no-doubter, no-brainer. Absolutely no way the Jags win this game. And before they actually woke up and smelled the coffee, it was 31-0. And that's what I expected. Honestly, the Jacksonville Jaguars aren't a good football team. And I've been debating with people whether they were the worst team in the league or not. I'm not ready to crown them the worst team in the league quite yet, but it's hard to refute that statement right now because they're not putting up a fight. In every game they've been in, they've basically been blown out, with the exception of week 2 versus the Raiders. And they were really never in that game either, but they haven't played competitive football. And some of that can be attested to not having Justin Blackmon. Some of that can be attested to they don't have a quarterback. But these are all things that you came into the season already knowing. So you don't get a pass on those things. That's your fault. And it's tough because I looked at this draft and I said, hey, they got faster. They got more athletic. But I haven't seen it yet. It hasn't translated onto the field, and so that's very disappointing. Cecil Shorts III did show up in this game. He was the lone bright spot. They got a little bit of pressure on Russell Wilson, not much. They did force him into a mistake that led to their first touchdown of the game. Paul Posluszny got involved in the tip drill, picked it off, got it down inside the 5. They were able to run it in with Maurice Jones-Drew. So, and that was one of the lone bright spots in this football game, but this was a shellacking. This was a total demolition of the Jacksonville Jaguars. This Seattle Seahawks team is impossible to deal with at home. This is exactly why, if you are in the NFC, you have to hope and pray that this Seattle Seahawks team does not get home field advantage throughout in the NFC playoffs, because if they do, who's going into Seattle to beat these guys? That's what I want to know. Who is going to be the team brave enough to step into the Hawks' nest and go in there, smack this team around, and come out with a W? That's going to be extremely hard to do. Right now, it looks all but impossible. And so this team is ultra dangerous at home. And if they can find a way to win games on the road, this team is going to be, without a doubt, the front runner in the NFC for the Super Bowl. They have to be if they can win on the road. Because at home right now, they're like I said, they're almost impossible to deal with at home. I mean, this crowd gets involved. It gets loud. It's always wet, it seems like, in Seattle, which they seem to be able to play with it with no problem. But you come in there and you're not used to it, and it's just something else that you have to deal with. This team at home has a distinct advantage, and you saw it in this game. Russell Wilson, 4 touchdown passes in this game. He was magnificent. They sprinkled in some run. This defense was dominant as always. And I mean, what more do you expect from the Seattle Seahawks? This is a really, really good football team. To me, they right now are the best team in the NFC. But again, I still have question marks about this team on the road. They've only been on the road once this season. And on that one road game, they were vulnerable against the Carolina Panthers, another team that plays extremely good defense. And so I think this Seattle Seahawks team still has some questions on the road to answer for me. But right now at home, there are no questions. The only question is, can they be beaten at home? And right now, the answer is a resounding no. And so if this team can go out, and this is what I said, because right now, until someone beats them at home, they're going to run the table at home. So they're going to be 8-0. I'm penciling them in for an 8-0 home record. If they can find a way to split the road and just go 4-4 on the road, that would put them at 12-4. To me, that's going to be good enough to win this division, because we already see the San Francisco 49ers are 1-2. So They're halfway to 4 losses. And one of those losses came at the hands of the Seattle Seahawks. So I can't see the 49ers winning 12 games and going 12-4. So if the Seahawks can go 12-4, they'll win the division. And the way the NFC is shaping up, who else is going to finish at 12-4? I mean, you look around, the Saints are playing good football. Maybe they'll rival the Seattle Seahawks for the best record in the NFC. But after that, you got the Chicago Bears. I don't trust the Bears to play good enough to win 12 games this season. And so, look, if the Seahawks can just play even football on the road and continue to be dominant at home, what do you do with this team? This team is extremely dangerous. They've got it clicking on all cylinders. And they dominated the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not much to talk about from this game. I'm looking big picture here. This was a game they were supposed to win. They were supposed to dominate. They did exactly what they were supposed to do in this game. I'm looking big picture. This team has a chance to do something special in 2013, but they got to find ways to win on the road. I'll be anxious to see when they play good teams on the road, how do they respond? Because right now, I have question marks. They should have lost that game to me in Carolina if they don't force a fumble. And look, they forced that turnover. Let's not act like the Panthers self-destructed. No, they made their own break in that game. They forced a turnover and recovered as the Panthers were going in for the go-ahead score. So give the credit where it is due to the Seattle Seahawks defense. They're dominant, and they get stops, and they force turnovers when they need to do it. And this team is 3-0, and they've been dominant doing so. And you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're 0-3. They look hapless right now. They look hopeless. This is not a good football team, and they got to start from the ground up. And we already knew that. When Gus Bradley took this job and he went home to Seattle and it wasn't a good homecoming, look, when he took this job, he had to know that this was a rebuilding project. And this was going to be ugly early. Now, did I expect it to be this ugly? Maybe, maybe not. But they got to get a quarterback. That's first and foremost. You don't have a quarterback in this league, and I say it all the time. You do not have a quarterback in this league, you don't have a chance. And right now, the Jacksonville Jaguars don't stand a chance on most Sundays. And so, Seattle Seahawks get it done, 45-17 in blowout fashion, which is what we all expected. They go to 3-0 in the season. They've looked very good and very dominant doing so. Meanwhile, the Jacksonville Jaguars dropped to 0-3. And they need a life raft at this point. They need some help. Maybe Justin Blackmon, when he comes back, can be that life raft. But right now, I don't even think he can help and cure some of these ills that's going on with this Jacksonville Jaguars team. They're just not talented. And that's very frustrating because I thought they added speed. They added some talented guys that they'd be able to use like chess pieces on the football field on the offensive side. But they just don't have enough offensively yet to compete consistently in this league. And so that'll do it for me. Thank you for joining me here in the Lab Room. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the Lab Room. Have a good one. See you next time. Like the content? Want more? Sub up.
In the lab